Hi, this is George Salmon. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. Growth Drive is the #1 best-selling business advising platform, and this is our podcast, the Business Advisor Hot Seat. Now, in the hot seat, you're going to hear from industry leaders, thought leaders, your colleagues who are going to share tips, techniques, war stories about building a thriving advisory business based on delivering client wins. We're going to get into it. We'll get into it about the Growth Drive methodology, the Clarity software, what we see out in the world, so much more than just the system. And I'm also the author of the Growth Driving Advisor, which is based on over a decade of being an advisor to advisor, working with you and your colleagues, helping them build their practices, helping them through client engagements, and it's really proven strategies for leading businesses from stuff to best in class. Check it out. So strap in. We're going to light this up. Here we go.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And this week in the hot seat, we have, for the second time, I believe, my good friend, Dr. Patricia Malone, who is a doctor, has a PhD in strategic capacity. This is our second conversation about this topic. And Patricia is with Brenneman Advisors out of Traverse City, Michigan. And without me butchering what Brenneman Advisors, the great things that Brenneman Advisors do, why don't I toss it over to you, Patricia? Welcome. If you please share who you are and why clients hire you in the firm.
Okay. So, and Brenneman Advisor is an investment banking firm, and we sell founder-led companies. That's what we specialize in. So, we're primarily here in northern Michigan, but we're in the middle of an expansion. So we're moving down to Kalamazoo area, Grand Rapids area, and we're beginning to do some business development down there. We have we sell any companies from anywhere from 3 million in EBITDA to 100 plus million, 150 million in revenue. We've sold companies to internationally.
Yep.
We've sold we've sold anywhere from companies in manufacturing, all industries. And we've been in business for about 5 years for sure. Yeah, I'd say 5 years. And we're presently expanding. And people hire me because we add value. Our whole thing is we measure value, so we do valuations. We add value. We work with companies to actually build their value.
Yes.
And then we harvest value. We work with companies to sell them and bring the value of the company to the owners.
Yeah, and you guys have been growing. You've been growing really nicely over the last few years. You know, I remember when you joined Brian and Brenneman Advisors, and it's been exciting to watch you guys really killing it in the market.
Yeah, we have a lot of backlog of projects we're working on right now. And we just closed recently, we just closed a really big deal here locally, and we continue to get bigger and bigger companies.
Yeah, outstanding. And I'm going to be seeing you at the summit. I know I owe you an email on that.
Okay, good. I was going to mention it.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that you're coming. It's going to be so great to have your voice in the community. So
Well,
I mean,
thank you.
in the event.
Thank
So
you.
that's cool. So, well, let's get to the topic at hand. We have a published draft, a first working draft of a white paper called Strategic Capacity as a Fundamental Driver of Value Creation, right? And strategic capacity being the concept. And you literally have a doctorate in strategic capacity. You and I tend to geek out on this topic, and as we did in our first conversation. But I had asked you to take a peek at the white paper and give me your thoughts, inputs. If you and in fact, we're going to end up collaborating pretty deeply on this, which I'm excited about. Thank you. So again, it comes down to, you covered it in what your work at Brenneman Advisors and what you do, and what the Growth Drive community is doing more generally with helping people. I shorthand strategic capacity as saying it's a business's ability to predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow, or because that's what an acquirer would want. It is also what the CEO should want for their business: predictably and sustainably growing cash flow. I mean, who doesn't want that? Because the predictability hopefully takes a lot of the craziness, the chaos out of growth. And maybe I'll start there. You've had a chance to check out the white paper. This isn't oh my God, it was a great thing. This is, did anything jump out of the way we described it? And then I have a follow-on question. What made you lean in and say, "Hey, George, yes, I'd love to collaborate with you on this"?
Well, as you know, I did my dissertation on building strategic capacity. So my dissertation was about creating a theory for how organizations can build strategic capacity, which at that time I defined as an organization's ability to reach their ultimate potential. And so my dissertation focused on the softer side of strategic capacity, which was more about organization development. What are the factors that are important in an organization to help them achieve that? And I actually literally developed a theory of how an organization can grow their strategic capacity. And you've come at it from the angle of the financial aspect of it, which is the predictable cash flows. You can prove your growth, your financial statements during the due diligence process. Your management team is capable, and you have opportunities to grow. And that's the really important thing in an organization, being able to improve their strategic capacity and grow their value. And so for me, I go into organizations and I work with the management team to mentor and coach them in all aspects of building the value, which is about growing the management team and growing the individual's capabilities and the organization's capabilities to deliver on their strategic initiatives. Many organizations don't even have strategic initiatives. They don't have budgets. I also do a lot of fractional CFO work. And it's about building the foundation first, so that, like de-risking the company, which is part of building value and building strategic capacity, then developing a strategic plan, then coaching that organization in creating a good strategic governance system so that they can measure how they're doing every quarter and deliver on that strategic plan, and then working on the organization to help create succession plans for the management team to grow the leadership, potentially to replace certain key positions that might need replaced, to continually improve the culture of the organization so they continue to harvest and their potential, their growth potential, and deliver results consistently and become a stronger and stronger team, so that the owner of the business, when the owner selling is the secret sauce, right? I'm selling the secret sauce and the ability of the business to continue after I'm gone. So we work on all those aspects, and not only predictably deliver predictable results, grow the management team, cultivate the culture, which would include values that enable that secret sauce to continue without the owner of the company. So that was a bit of a long-winded,
No, not at all.
long-winded answer, but
that was outstanding. Patricia, and it's interesting. You and I, you and I both started using the same term, coincidentally, to describe what is essentially a healthy business, but we both came at it from a different perspective. And I remember my aha moment. I was on the phone with one of your colleagues, and who's now working. It doesn't matter. He's been hired by a private equity group to grow their portfolio companies, but a super knowledgeable guy. And I remember, we were talking about this issue, and I said, well, what we're really talking about, what Growth Drive is about, is a business's capacity to execute its strategy, right? Having a strategy, having a goal is one thing, having a strategy is another good thing, but having the ability to execute, the capacity to execute that strategy is something else altogether. And I think you and I are talking about something very same, but different. Which is why, which is one of the many, many reasons we get along so well. So when you're working with a client, Patricia, let's talk about the impact. I put the title out there, strategic capacity as a fundamental to creating fundamental driver of value. How do we create additional value in a business? and help business owners understand. And I think you just teased it out, that you can increase the transferable, it's a key word, right? The transferable value of a business by increasing its strategic capacity.
Yes.
I'm not sure I phrased that as a question, but let's just go with it.
I was like, is that a question?
Yeah. So when you come into a typical client, or if there's a client right now, without, protecting the innocent by changing the names, but when you come into a client, what do you generally find?
Well, usually with the firms, we work in the middle market.
Yeah.
So usually with the firms that we work with, we find that there's lots of issues with financial reporting. The financial statements are not where they need to be at all. There's lots of mistakes that have been made in the past in terms of issues with like obsolete inventory and, oh, I never paid sales taxes. I'm supposed to pay sales taxes, and just basic compliance issues that we discover. So what we typically work on is de-risking first and foremost, and building a platform that we could start working from financially. So we'll clean up help them clean up their financial statements, put together a 3-year model, do a budget, and then drive that budget through the organization so that the organization is accountable. So it's like a departmental budget that we work on creating. We just see that the management team usually doesn't always have a strategic governance system. So they're not doing a budget. They're not looking at a 3-year plan. They're not doing monthly review meetings to look at their actuals and compare it against plan. And then managers aren't signing up for initiatives that support that growth. So we work on the foundational side of things first. That's typically what we find when we first arrive. And then once we get that we've cleaned up the books, any reporting issues, we've, educated them and made sure the financials are GAAP and that they're accurate. And then we've put in a budget, and then we start having monthly reviews and a financial reporting package that shows actual against budget. And then managers are talking to their initiatives and how they did every month and reviewing that. And then we're de-risking. So we often find that there's a lot of gaps, like they don't have employment practices liability insurance, or they really need to consider key man insurance and they don't have that, or there's other risk factors there that we work on. As you de-risk an organization, their cost of capital goes down, which raises their value immediately.
Yes.
And so that's the first phase. We usually find things are in disarray, and they don't know what they don't know. They don't know the power of a budget. They don't know how powerful that is. And once you get the management team engaged and they have initiatives that line up with that overall growth plan, they don't realize the power of that.
The incredible power. Yeah.
It's incredible power. And they just don't know, but they don't know.
And you see this play out, right? And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, and I don't want to come back to a couple of things you just shared, but the compound impact of changing several things by just 1%, the compounding effect is shocking. Good. Yeah.
And lowering that risk also makes them more transferable. Often we walk in and nobody would dream of buying them. It's just too much risk. A financial buyer would be like, no, like this is totally dependent on the owner. The owner leaves, the secret sauce is gone. This business is going to fall apart. So just going in and de-risking the business immediately adds effects to the value of the business. It makes it more saleable and transferable.
It's interesting because, you and I met after I had written my book, after I had described these things. But this is all in the software, in the book, in the community, and all the things that Growth Drive is doing, which is, which it's logical that you would be like, yes, I would like to. I mean, you guys are fantastic customers. Thank you. But you're talking about effective senior leadership so the business can run smoothly without the owner. You're talking about making sure that people are efficient with low turnover. You're talking about getting good data out of the machine, out of the beast, to manage the business. But I love the fact that you're actually budgets, forecasts, and actuals. That's one of the growth driving objectives in the growth in dimension 2, predictable, sustainable growth. And the power of a budget should equal accountability. And if it equals accountability, we have to make projections. We have to track how we're doing against those projections. And importantly, and what a lot of people don't get is we have to change the behaviors, the accountabilities, and the written, he said, underscoring processes, or the recorded processes for generating those financial outputs. And that is a lot of when we get into, we just wrote an article last week about quality, the link up between strategic capacity and a quality of earnings review. And that's what quality of earnings is also trying to surface, are these risks to future revenue, to future profitability. And you're a fractional CFO getting into things like, hey, do you understand how your margins compare to your competitors? Because if your margins aren't equal to or better than your competitors, how attractive are you? What does that say about your organization? Well, one more comment, when we're about to release the DCF, discounted cash flow calculator, as another tool looks at value. And you'll see at the top, there are 2 questions at the top, and they're basically yes, no's. Are these normalized? Is EBITDA normalized? Which is an opportunity to educate a client. You and I know what normalized EBITDA is, but most clients wouldn't. And are you accounting on a cash or accrual basis? And what do most businesses, how do they account?
Cash.
Should they, what do they need to do for a transaction? Accrual. That's all very, very good stuff.
Things that you mentioned here, and this is really absolutely critical, is the coaching. The coaching process is huge. We coach the CEO, then the CEO, and we work with the CEO and the management team to help coach the management team. We bring operational excellence tools to the table to help that management team execute those initiatives. So the first key is coaching the leader on what is transferable value and why should I care and what do I need to focus on. And then and it's basically 3 simple things. If you're going to boil it down, it would be the management team, a capable management team who's empowered and can continue the business without the leader, the stable cash flows that can be proven during a due diligence process. So, and then growth opportunities. And you don't have to have spent all the money and actually grown the company. You just need to show that it has arms and legs and that you can prove that it's possible to grow the company because of what you're going to tell a potential buyer.
Keep going, Patricia.
No. Then I was kind of lose my train of thought. Then what we do is we ensure there's a good once we put the budget in, it isn't always bottom up the first time. Sometimes it's top down if it's never been done. And then we bring the management team in and educate them. But then it's about the strategic management system that they use going forward to ensure that what the managers are doing are aligned to the overall strategies of the company, which often the company doesn't have a vision. They don't have strategies. We take them through a facilitation of a strategic planning process to develop that. But then we're coaching the leadership team every month through the management review process, where they're looking at results and comparing initiatives for each manager and discussing progress and roadblocks, et cetera. So it's coaching the team as much as it is putting these foundational elements in from which then you can build and further coach the team and then strengthen the culture.
Heck yes. And you start, okay, you and I are going to, okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be listening for the next 4 hours because we're going down. It's fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. Because how do we help, what we often don't see, I'm going to make one comment and then I'll get into this topic. It's often, do you find, I should ask it as a question, that just having a strategic plan as part of the package you can push across the deal table in an M&A transaction is valuable?
It's not only valuable, it's essential.
There
and
we go.
You really want to show a 3-year plan that has growth or whatever, your initiatives are baked in, and you spell out what the initiatives could be. I mean, your strategic buyer may bring other things to the table that enable even more things, but you absolutely must have a strategic plan, and you need to
Yes.
have at least a 3-year financial plan to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun. It's interesting. And I hope that the market's starting to get more educated and change. But to have a lot of business owners do not understand, do not perceive that having a strategic plan during a transaction is actually it's a must have.
That's a must have.
And we're looking in the rearview mirror, and here's how that we created the magic that we think you should buy, and here's how the magic will continue, right?
That's it exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this brings us back to, so if we have a strategic plan at the table, ladies and gentlemen, you're already saying to yourselves, we better make sure the business has the capacity to execute that plan. It's interesting, owner dependence. Let's talk about that for a sec. And it's the number one deal killer, right? And a lot of business owners, what do you typically, I'm just vast generalizations, when you go into a middle market business, how often what do you see in terms of owner dependence?
Oh, it's usually a huge amount of owner dependence, because one of the aspects going on is the owner has bootstrapped this company, maybe 10 years or more, and the owner has to mature. So there's a level of ownership, management, leadership. So when you're first starting out, you tell everybody what to do. You're doing everything yourself. You're the marketing guy. You're the operations guy. Then you start hiring people. Well, your leadership style has to change as the company grows for you to empower your team, grow your management team, and unleash their capabilities. And a lot of times owners have a hard time switching over from doing everything themselves to having a team, and they don't know how to empower that team and make it so that, or delegate. And so their leadership style has set it up so the business is highly dependent on them. They own the customer relationships. Like, you have to ask yourself, would my customer survive if I left? What would happen? Would my products still be the same and services if I left? What would happen? And because the owner's been so dependent in or required in the whole life of the business for those 10 years or whatever, it's really hard for them to make that shift, to start letting go of more and more things. And therefore, their management leadership teams aren't ready when they're ready to sell. We all can see that.
It's interesting. I have a friend whose business is doing quite well, and they just acquired another company, and they're busy integrating the two. And he mentioned to me in passing, "Hey, I really need to hire a sales manager." And I was like, I came back to him and I said, "You mean a managing director?" He said, No, just a guy to manage the sales guys." I'm like, "No, you mean a managing director. You need someone to get the incredible amount of work off of your plate, and someone who understands how to run the business in your absence." And a sales manager can be very helpful, but it's not going to contribute to the value of your business. And I said it to him he's a very close friend, so I said it to him in a slightly different way. But that's the thing, right? You need to create someone who can run the day-to-day. We're not trying to clone the owner, but we're certainly trying to get their accountabilities covered.
That's it exactly. Would the secret sauce of the business continue without the owner? Oftentimes the answer is no.
No. Yes, more often than not, which is why 19 out of 20 companies cannot successfully complete an M&A transaction as they are currently run. 19 out of 20. That means 5% can. And of that 5%, and shoot holes in my assertion, that 5% then shares the spread, the range of values. So that 5% then shares the let's say, use manufacturing, 2x to 6x earnings, again, from a financial buyer. So the number of companies who can trade at the top end of the range of multiples as they're currently run, you're talking sub 1%. Does that resonate?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what the data tells us. Yeah. And then
we see that all the time. We see deals fall apart all the time because the leadership team just isn't empowered, and it's too big of a risk for the potential buyer.
Yeah, and as the owner, you're like, what do you mean? This is a good business. Look, I have a fast car. Look, I have a big house. Look, I'm living. Who wouldn't want this business? Look at the great lifestyle it affords, and it feels good. It does feel good, but those are qualitative. And the market, what does the private capital markets want? Quantitative. It is deathly quantitative. And again, you've pointed it out, and I'll underscore it. Unless we're talking about a strategic buyer, and that it is impossible to code and predict strategic buyers. We can, as an aside, we can identify, and you probably help your clients identify, hey,
Sure.
who would pay a premium for us?
Oh, we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk
We'll
about
go
that for a
out.
sec, actually. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say we have extensive databases and we use a discrete selling process. So we don't reveal who our potential seller is. And we have extensive databases where we'll go out and research the industry, the players, and we'll put a
Yeah,
whole
it's good
list
investment
together.
banking. Yeah.
Strategic buyers and financial buyers too, because we have relationships with both of them. And ideally, you have you create a market because you have potentially multiple buyers at the table.
Sure.
But that doesn't always happen either, unless it's some kind of a roll up or something going on that, there's a lot of interest in. But so we do develop that list, and then we'll help our clients to identify strategic opportunities that oftentimes, a lot of times, the buyer will or the seller will come to us and they're tired. They just want out.
Yeah.
They don't want to put all that energy into growing the business so they could get the price that they want. So then the value gap ends up being a lot higher than they were thinking it was going to be, and they just don't have the energy to grow the business and do the work that needs to be done. And then a lot of times they'll sell at a lesser price if they sell.
Yeah, if they can even sell. Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. It sounds self-serving. If there are any CEOs, those of you who are running businesses and listening to this, it sounds very self-serving for Patricia as an advisor, for me, George, as someone who runs a community of advisors, to say you need to hire an advisor today and keep them and take their advice. You know what? You need to hire an advisor today, years in advance, because the quality of your life. The quality of your life will improve. Maybe we'll get into one of my favorite topics, and it's so hard to get people to grasp. It is the seventh exit option. It is creating a business, and I know this isn't good for investment bankers, but create a business with high strategic capacity, 85, 87. There are any 90s, I look with a jaundiced eye, but let's say an 85. You should have a business where the owner can exit the accountabilities chart, continue to own the business, continue to harvest cash, and a business that has a strategic capacity score. So that's the difference between us. You write about when your dissertation is about qualitative. My perspective is about scoring, ranking, measuring
Yes.
strategic capacity. And a business that has an 85, where the owner, I'll say it again, can exit the accountabilities chart and move into a purely strategic role. Imagine that they've gone from being the operator to being the chairman. And imagine this, if you're having a hard time grasping that, think of a private equity transaction. Private equity, the chairman is strategy, right? The CEO and chairman are strategy. If you in private equity, what a lot of people don't perceive is, in a private equity transaction, the private equity group is strategy, and the operator that they put in place is tactical. And so what I'm talking about is doing the same thing, but running a self-directed private equity play where your owner becomes they become the group strategy, and they hire an operator, a president, whatever title you want to put on them, to run the day-to-day business. And they're able to continue taking their salary, harvest cash, and create predictably and sustainably growing free cash flow. Those are the ultimate businesses. And what folks fail to comprehend, and it's hard to get a client to understand, I'm dancing up and down here, that if you create that oil well, you have the option of selling it successfully as low friction transaction. There's always friction, a lower friction, But if you only reach for getting ready to sell, you're right, you're exhausted, and then you're kind of clawing your way over the wall. Creating these oil well businesses is tremendous work. It's great for the owners. I mean, it's a great way if you can verbalize and get an owner to grasp why this is such good work and why it's such a worthwhile investment, that they keep all of the options open, right? It's like the best of
Yeah.
all worlds. I'm going to die at my desk, a rich man. Well, great. If that's what you'd like to do, Diane, if that's what you'd like to do, Madam CEO, please. Does that resonate?
Yes, you can't lose. Like either way, you want freedom ultimately. You either want freedom through selling the business or you want freedom from being able to step away, or both. Step away until you're ready to sell or whatever. But ultimately it brings you the freedom.
Yeah. It's funny, Patricia, I was just in Louisville with David Parsons, who you'll meet at the summit. He's a C3D, and he invited and got 62 CEOs to agree to come and sit in a 2-hour event. Fantastic. He asked me to come in. I did. And I asked the room, who here wants to retire? And in the traditional sense of the word, how many hands do you think went up?
None.
None. You're absolutely right.
I get it. None. Yeah.
None. Who wants to work on their own terms? And I've asked this question of a lot of groups. I've had a handful of hands go up, but you're talking about a handful out of hundreds and hundreds. But you work on your own terms, all the hands go up. And so then a gentleman named David Elder was sitting next to me on the panel. He's a wealth advisor out of Atlanta, great guy, super smart. And he said, hey, let me add some context here. Do you know, and I haven't researched it, but my gut tells me he's absolutely right. And he's a smart guy. I'm sure he is. Only one generation has ever retired in the sense that we're talking about. And it was the greatest generation. The World War II, they by and large retired with a pension and played golf. And I remember those checkered pants, but they retired. But no other generation before or since has retired in this false promise that we all talk about it as if it's going to happen, but none of us do it. Right? It's fascinating. Right. So the oil well ought to make a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah, like the whole thing is, why would you walk away from your life's work? Like to a certain extent, it brings a lot of meaning. A lot of owners that sell go through a crisis because they have the dark night of the soul. They have to reinvent themselves. They don't know what to do with themselves. And I know you've seen the statistic. What is it? 80% of all people that sell are unhappy, or some large statistic like that. And it's because they haven't necessarily thought through what brings meaning to me and what do I, and fulfillment. And so they don't necessarily want to they certainly don't want to do the classic, just retire and sit on the porch and do nothing and play golf or whatever. They want to have some kind of meaning and fulfillment in their life, but just on their own terms, like you said, the freedom to just do it 2 days a week. I'm going to work in my field, and then I'm going to go see the grandkids for the, et cetera.
Yeah. Heck yes. Which is exactly, that's the future I have planned for myself. I don't know about you, but I'm never going to stop working. I'm never going to stop working on this topic. And I find that exciting, right? The corollary, you're right. Most people, when they sell and stop, are unhappy, probably not nearly as unhappy as their spouse. We hear that all the time. I haven't researched the friction that happens inside relationships. I can tell you the call I got from my mom. He used to manage a global enterprise, and now he's managing me. And you've got to get here this weekend and fix it. I'm like, how did I
take them off my hands?
I'm the son, man. Why is this anyhow? But you're right. They're unhappy. So what do we do for clients? We talked about strategic capacity as a fundamental driver of value creation. And if I could just go back and recap, the value of a business, the transferable value of a business, is driven by its ability, by its lack of risk, right? The shorthand. And how do we create a lack of risk to what? Risk to predictably and sustainably growing free cash flow. And people are like, well, you don't have to grow the business, to which my response is, well, the economy is growing at 3%. So if you don't grow it at least 3%, you're not treading water. If you're getting, if you're not even treading water. So we want to grow at least at the rate of inflation just to stay in one place. And you got to walk at least as fast as the moving sidewalk, right? And so strategic capacity, the next question becomes, how do we de-risk the business and in what areas? And you and I refer to strategic capacity, and you actually described some hard goods, budgets, management practices, management styles, a tempo. You described a tempo of meetings, which marries up really nicely with the growth drive, execution, leadership, business operating system, or LBOS, as people have started calling it. But that gets into this rhythm. We're going to gather data. We're going to meet every week to discuss that data. We're going to we're going to track our performance against our goals using the data. And we're going to get together monthly. And Patricia, I'd be curious. So I describe the monthly meeting as a strategy tactics true up, right? So we've been doing this weekly tactical stuff. And once a month, we're going to say, okay, are we on strategy, right? Are we moving towards executing our strategy? And then quarterly is a much more purely strategic check-in. Let's make sure that our overarching strategy is being done. And then annually, we need to get together and look at where were we, where are we, what went right, what did we break. We need to have a big a strategic deep dive facilitated by someone like you, like your fellow growth drivers, someone who understands that just adding dollars to revenue is good. It's good, but adding value, if you work on value, you're going to pull the revenues will pop.
Sure.
Actually, let's do you see that happen? You start working on strategy and what happens?
Well, yeah, as you empower the management team, show the management team tools and techniques to achieve their initiatives, they return far more than you ever even imagined. I mean, focusing on the foundation and the team, if you do those things, then everything else will take care of itself.
It does take care of itself, doesn't it? Because
It
people are
does.
fundamentally good. They're fundamentally competitive, and I mean that in a complimentary way. They fundamentally want to do well. We're honest animals, right? I love that. Wow, Patricia, I can't believe we've been talking for almost 40 minutes. So you and I are going to collaborate on another. So we have this white paper that's out there that you've reviewed, and I'm not going to. I'm happy to have you share your views in public. But one of the things we've talked about is the fact that there's this strategic capacity as a fundamental driver of value creation, and we wrote that for investment bankers generally. And we have a version for accountants, and a version for business advisors generally, and a version for wealth advisors, and a version for business owners coming out. And I hope I can collaborate with you on each and all. Yeah, those of you who are listening and not watching, Patricia's this is why we get along. Her eyebrows are up, and you're indicating enthusiasm. What maybe we'll wrap up with this. What's one thing that jumps out, not of the white paper, but of the concept of strategic capacity that you think needs to be amplified out in the market generally?
Well, for me, I wrote my dissertation on this, as you said, as a qualitative. It's more on the softer side, the cultural side. But so for me, I think what needs to be amplified is it's not just one thing. It's not just put a budget in and call it good, or go get a valuation and then call it good. It's really paying attention to the soft side and the hard side.
Yes.
Paying attention to the culture. Another thing that makes a company be transferable is values. the values in the company that you establish and run that company by are what enable that company to continue and have continuity regardless of if the owner's there or not. So, but it's not just values. It's also having a budget. It's having a 3-year plan. It's having a strategy. So I think you have to pay attention to the soft side and the hard side of strategic capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you've mentioned two things. I love that. Thank you. And you mentioned two things I've just would like to underscore, if that's okay. One is culture. When you create, so I'll just shorthand it, and please, as always, shoot holes in my theory. But when you create a business that has an effective senior leadership team, when you have done the things that it takes to have an efficient workforce that has low turnover, and I mean efficient in a good way, right? And that's why we called it productive and loyal. When you're generating high recurring revenues, when you have processes for sale, processes for delivery, processes for marketing, just keep going. When you put those in place, you are perforce creating a can-do, will-do culture, right? And that's what people don't get, that we use these terms culture and brand, but you are perforce creating. When people talk about culture, creating a culture, we want to create a culture of winning, right? A culture of doing, a culture of friendly collaboration inside the business, but of a pretty hard-nosed accountability. And it can still be friendly. We've all raised kids. There are two ways, right? And if you raise kids, at least the way I view the world is the same way as collaborating with a coworker. We may disagree, and we're going to do it respectfully. And I ultimately have veto power because I'm your boss. But when you create that can-do, will-do culture, doing the things that you've just described, Patricia, you are also, and here's the part that people don't really get. Brand is the outward manifestation of culture. Brand is what the business means to the customer and to the other stakeholders. And so when you create a can-do, will-do culture of accountability, a culture of winning, a culture of doing the right things, and the values come in, you're creating this culture results in a stronger brand because the customer experience, the value to the customer, he said, going back to, this is work that comes out of the 1970s. Jack Welch, Herman Cain, and others worked on this exact, what's the value of a business to its customer, which may be the genesis of what you and I are talking about. That'd be one comment. The other is you talked about values. Values are critically important. One of the things that people fail to do is they don't make the leap. So if we describe values and we take the time to really describe the values by which we will run this business, one of the things when we talk about succession planning and getting and reducing owner dependence is saying, okay, well, here are policies. Here are our decision-making policies. If you don't have values, you can't have decision-making policies. And imagine if you don't have decision-making policies, if the CEO gets, God forbid, hit by a bus, we don't know what are the guardrails. There are no really wrong decisions because you can always adapt, and you can make. I mean, there are, but generally in the day-to-day running of a business, there are no wrong decisions. You just adapt. You say, "Oh shit, we're gathering data, and that was not the smartest decision. Let's learn from the mistake and do it." But if we have values and we have these decisions, and values are not honesty and truth and hard work. Those are not values. Those are table any. But anyway, those two things they're these intangibles. They're like gravity, like dark matter, right?
Yes, that's very profound, George.
Oh, well, thank you.
There's a huge connection between your values and your brand.
Yeah.
And there's a huge connection between your brand and your multiples.
Yes. Maybe we should end it there. Drop the mic. Boom. Well, people talk about
on ahead.
Yeah. And maybe we will. We'll wrap it up there because we could just go on.
I could go on.
This is another fantastic conversation, Patricia. Thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are. and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in person again here in Charleston. Ladies and
I'll be
gentlemen,
there.
Patricia Malone, PhD in strategic capacity. You are a growth specialist. You are, which is just you're well on your way to having your C3D, and honestly, one of the smartest, kindest, most fulfilled people I know, and it's just a pleasure being your colleague and your friend. Thank you.
I'm excited to collaborate with you, George. I think it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. We're going to have a ton of fun. All right,
I think
Patricia, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Bye, everybody.
This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.